Welcome back to the Presence of Being podcast. Thank you for being here and for listening. I hope you are having an amazing day wherever you are listening to this. In this recording, I'm going to read from a book that I just started reading a few days ago, and it is You Are the Happiness You Seek by Rupert Spira. This book aims to teach something that I have been speaking about for some time, which is the idea that you are whole as you are. And true happiness and fulfillment and peace is found internally. It's our nature, and it's not something that you need to earn externally. The fulfillment we spend our lives pursuing, happiness, peace, love, wholeness, is not something we must earn, achieve, or something that we find in external situations or external conditions. Happiness, peace, fulfillment, these things are our very nature, and they're not things that are conditional. They're not things that are dependent upon getting somewhere or achieving something or earning something. This book points us back to our own direct experience and shows that these qualities are already present in the very nature of our own being. One thing that this book does so far, something that I picked up on as I'm reading it, is that it encourages us to look beyond the constant movement of thoughts and emotions and circumstances and to notice the unchanging awareness in which all of this comes and goes. That awareness is our true selves. It's open, it's peaceful, it's complete, and it's untouched by the shifting conditions of the world. I think this message is so important because most of our suffering comes from believing that something outside of us must change before we can feel whole. We chase relationships, accomplishments, recognition, comfort. We chase security, hoping that they will finally deliver lasting satisfaction or fulfillment or happiness. But anything external is by nature temporary. So the peace we try to extract from it never lasts. And this book does an amazing job showing us that the very act of seeking outwardly reinforces the illusion that we are incomplete. And when we turn inward and recognize our own presence as the stable background of experience, we discover over time that the peace we wanted was always here. It was always present. I personally feel like it's easy to relate to this kind of teaching because it directly speaks to a universal human experience, right? This subtle sense of not enoughness, the feeling that something is missing. By recognizing that this feeling comes from misidentifying ourselves with the changing content of our lives rather than the changeless awareness behind it, we begin to relax a bit in our search. And this book reminds us that we're not broken. We're not lacking anything. We're not separate. We are the fullness, the happiness, the peace, the fulfillment that we've been looking for. Recognizing this, realizing this, doesn't require us to adopt new beliefs and to change who we are. It simply requires being present and noticing what is already true, what is already here. And in that recognition, the happiness that we've been seeking for so long, the peace, the fulfillment, the joy that we've been seeking for so long reveals itself as our natural state. So I just started reading this book. I have many, many chapters to go, but I wholeheartedly recommend picking this up if you resonate with what I'm saying. If you're someone who is searching for inner peace, questioning the source of true happiness maybe, or feeling that something essential is missing in your life, then I wholeheartedly believe that you will gain a lot of value from reading this book. So what I'm going to do now is read part of the first chapter from this book. It is called The Search for Happiness. And after I'm done reading it, I'll come back and have a few comments, and then I'll wrap up this recording. So here is part of the first chapter, The Search for Happiness. The search for happiness. Happiness being found to be something final and self-sufficient is the end at which all actions aim. Aristotle. We seek happiness above all else. Imagine a survey in which all 7 billion of us were asked what we want in life above all else. Most of us would respond that we desire better health, increased income, an intimate relationship, improved living conditions, a family, better work or preferably no need to work at all, and so on. Some of us would ask for less tangible things, enlightenment or knowledge of God. Whatever our priorities, most of us would select from a relatively short list of possibilities. However, if a second question then asked why we desire what we do, almost all of us would respond in one way or another that we seek the object, substance, activity, circumstance, or relationship because we believe it will bring us peace and happiness. In other words, what we really long for is not a particular experience for its own sake, but for the peace and happiness that we believe we will derive from it. If we knew that the house we were about to buy, the person we were about to marry, the journey we were about to embark on, or the job we were about to begin would make us miserable, we would no longer want it. We wish for these things only insofar as they are considered a source of happiness. Even those who voluntarily undergo great hardship for the sake of a moral, political, religious, or spiritual ideal do so ultimately for the sake of happiness, even if in extreme cases that happiness is postponed until after death. The desire for happiness is, therefore, the driving force in most of our lives. This longing for happiness takes us on a great adventure in the realm of objective experience. By objective experience, I do not refer to physical objects alone, but to any experience that has some kind of form, including all thoughts, images, feelings, sensations, perceptions, activities, and relationships. Although any of these things may seem to afford moments or periods of happiness, sooner or later they come to an end. The old dissatisfaction resurfaces and the search begins again. Once the search in the conventional realm of objective experience has failed to deliver lasting happiness sufficiently, often many people turn to a religious or spiritual tradition. In this case, the goal, however we may conceive it, is the same: peace, joy, fulfillment, contentment, or wholeness. Only the means have changed. Even those of us who seek enlightenment on a spiritual path or God on a religious path do so only on account of the peace and happiness we believe we will derive from it. If someone were to ask us whether we would prefer to be enlightened or happy, we would obviously choose happiness. If we believed that enlightenment would bring us misery, we would never seek it. It is only because it is believed that enlightenment will bring happiness that we are willing to devote our lives to seeking it. Likewise, if we believe that knowledge of God would make us miserable, no one would seek God. The only reason we were seeking enlightenment or God in the first place was that all other possible sources of happiness had failed us thus far. It is often as a last resort that we turn to the search for enlightenment or God, in the hope that its fulfillment will finally relieve us of our suffering and provide happiness. Therefore, the desire for happiness is the highest desire, and as such, it is unique. It is the only thing we seek for its own sake. I use the word happiness as the goal of this search simply because it is the common word for the absence of suffering or the end of seeking. I refer to it this way because I believe, rightly or not, that this word most accurately conveys, for the majority of people, that for which they long above all else. It is also a word to which everyone can relate, and it refers to an experience with which everyone is familiar. In particular, it is non-denominational and devoid of cultural overtones. It does not have to be believed in and is its own evidence. However, any word inevitably has its limitations, depending upon our particular association with it, especially in relation to that for which we all long above all else. If the word happiness does not evoke in you that which you love and for which you long above all else, please substitute it with another: fulfillment, contentment, peace, love, truth, beauty, joy, salvation, liberation, enlightenment, or God. Whether we feel a strong yearning in our heart or just the slightest sense of dissatisfaction, the feeling that something is missing, which when found will finally bring about the happiness for which we long, we are on a great search. However we conceive or name the goal for that search, its source is always the same, namely the desire to bring our current dissatisfaction to an end. If happiness is what we all love and long for above all else, then the investigation into its nature and cause must be the greatest endeavor on which one could embark. Happiness is inherent within us. Happiness is always experienced inside us. It is never put in from the outside. It may seem to be connected to or triggered by external events, but unlike the food we eat, the water we drink, or the air we breathe, we do not take it into ourselves from outside. It originates within us. It is experienced within us. And when it disappears, no residue of it is dispersed into the outside world. Happiness is entirely an interior experience. If happiness is always experienced within, albeit triggered by objective experience, mustn't it lie in potential in us all the time? And if so, shouldn't it be possible to have direct access to it and to remain constantly in touch with it without the need for our external circumstances to be configured in a particular way? If it were possible to be in touch with our inherent peace and happiness without being dependent on external circumstances, would that not be the greatest discovery one could make? One might argue that unhappiness is also always experienced inside of us, and must therefore lie latent within us at all times. According to this view, our inherent happiness or unhappiness would simply be triggered by circumstances, depending on the extent to which they conform to our desire or expectation. Although most people may not formulate it to themselves in this way, this is the common view of happiness and suffering. They are considered equal and opposite emotions, alternating in various degrees in our lives depending upon our circumstances. In the absence of understanding the nature of happiness and how it may be found, our culture has conditioned us to believe and even accept that the constant cycle of happiness and unhappiness is normal and unavoidable. Why is this? We do not expect to cycle through periods of health and sickness on an almost daily basis, let alone numerous times within a single day. If we are sick, we consider it a signal from the body that something is wrong and needs attention. Unhappiness is to the mind as sickness is to the body. It is a state of disharmony and imbalance. It is a signal that something is amiss and requires attention. However, in the absence of any understanding as to the real cause of unhappiness, our culture can only offer consolations and distractions. We all feel that health is the natural state of the body. Why do we not feel that happiness is the natural state of the mind? In this book, I will suggest that it is, that happiness is the very nature of our being or self, and as such lies in potential within us, accessible by all people and at all times, with the possible exception of those times when the safety and well-being of the body are compromised. From this point of view, suffering is understood as the veiling or obstructing of our innate happiness. Thus, there is either happiness or the veiling of it, but never its absence. All that is necessary to access our inherent happiness is to go directly into the depths of our being, behind the obscuring layers of thought and feeling. This is the great understanding that everyone should have from an early age. What could be more important in life than to know that we are already that for which we long? This understanding is the essence of all the principal religious and spiritual traditions. However, in almost all cases it has been lost, or at least obscured, by layers of superfluous doctrines and practices that arose around the simple and direct insight upon which they were originally founded. All the methods that are given in the various traditions have the ultimate purpose of facilitating access to the latent peace and joy that lies at the heart of all beings. The reason for so many different approaches and practices is not the complexity or the inaccessibility of what is being sought. It is due partly to the differences between the cultures in which this understanding was originally formulated, and partly to the differing responses required to address people's particular difficulties and objections. In each of these responses, this single understanding was refracted into numerous ideas and methods. However, when we distill these various approaches, they all indicate in one way or another that happiness is our nature, or that we are happiness itself. The end of the search. Everybody knows the experience of happiness. However, not everyone knows that happiness is the very nature of ourself and can be found in the depths of our being. As a result of this overlooking of the essential nature of ourself, a great search is initiated in the realm of objective experience. In the great poem The Mathnui, Sufi poet and mystic Jalaluddin Rumi tells of a man in Cairo who dreams of a treasure buried under a certain house in Baghdad. The man sets out on an arduous journey and after numerous trials and adventures reaches Baghdad and finds the house that appeared to him in his dream. He knocks on the door and an elderly man answers. The traveler relates his dream and the owner of the house replies, "That's strange. Last night I dreamt of a house in Cairo under which a great treasure was buried." The man from Cairo recognizes the description of the house as his own and returns home. And sure enough, under his own home he finds a great treasure. All those years he had been sitting on it without realizing it. This is the archetypal trajectory of everyone's life. The great search for happiness in the realm of objective experience and the return to the treasure of one's own being. The out-breath and the in-breath. The adventure of becoming and the return to being. The unfolding of one's life on the horizontal dimension of time and the periodic plunge into the vertical dimension of being. So that was part of the first chapter of The Happiness You Seek. I hope you got some value from listening to that. When I read that for the first time, it really sparked something within me, and something that I really want to emphasize was the story, the Rumi story, the man from Cairo who spends tremendous effort, time, and energy traveling across deserts and facing hardships in search of a treasure he believes that lies somewhere far away in a house in Baghdad. A house in Baghdad he's never been to before, he's never seen. Only when he finally arrives does he discover that this so-called treasure is actually beneath his own home, the place he left behind in the first place. And the meaning of this story is so profound. We humans, we ourselves, we often embark on long inner and outer journeys, searching for peace, searching for happiness, searching for wholeness in distant places, through achievements, through relationships, through possessions, and we never realize that what we seek has been within us all along. The treasure is the essence of our own being. And I know that sounds super spiritual, but it really doesn't have to be. Like, there is an inherent peace and completeness and presence that we overlook because we're busy searching for it out there. And when you get quiet and you spend like a few minutes in meditation every day, like, you will feel this peace. Like, you will feel how whole you really are. This isn't something that you need to commit to like for 10 years or 15 years to experience. It's just about, like, in a very practical way, it's just about committing to spending some time by yourself and like quieting your mind and getting present, and you will feel this wholeness. You will feel this peace that you have within, and you will start to awaken and realize that there was nothing that you needed to earn to feel this way. There was nothing you needed to accomplish or achieve to feel this way. There was no relationship that you needed to get into to feel this peace or to feel this happiness. It was within you all along. You just overlooked it because that's what we're kind of conditioned to do. This story, I think, is used to illustrate the universal trajectory of the human condition. We begin by seeking fulfillment externally, believing it lies in objective experience, career success, pleasure, status, whatever it might be. Eventually, after enough searching and disappointment, we are brought back to ourselves. and we discover that happiness is not something that we acquire. It is something that we learn to uncover within. Very similarly to the man who returns home to find the treasure beneath his own home. And something super interesting about this story, and I thought of it the first time I heard it, or read it, I should say, this story parallels the story in the first chapter of The Power of Now by Argenteuil, a book that I've spoken about at length, made videos about, read from in this podcast. But if you've read that book, you will know what I'm talking about. There's a story in the first chapter of The Power of Now about a beggar who sits on a box for decades, never knowing that the box that he sits on contains a treasure. And one day this man approaches him and asks him, has he ever opened up this box to check what's inside this box? The beggar then replies, I've been sitting on this box for as long as I can remember. There's nothing inside of it. And then the man is like, why don't you check to see what's inside of it? And the beggar opens it up and notices that there's a treasure that he's been sitting on this entire time. That's basically the gist of the story. And you can see the parallel between both stories. Both stories reveal the same truth in different ways. We overlook the richness of our own inner nature. We have gifts and treasure within. We assume fulfillment must come from outside of us, so we don't even bother looking within. If you take the time to look within, you will find the treasure that you are looking for out there. That's like the message that I get from both of these stories. The significance of both stories is that they expose the greatest illusion of human life, the belief that peace and happiness are found elsewhere. These stories point us back home. These books, they point us back home, back to the stillness and peace and happiness of our own presence. That's the real treasure. That's unchanging. It's not dependent on circumstances. And once you realize that, it's very liberating. So again, I really think that if you're into this kind of stuff, if you've enjoyed this recording, you will definitely enjoy reading this book. Again, the book is called You Are the Happiness You Seek by Rupert Spira. It has a nice yellow cover to it. I'm still in the process of reading this book. Like I said, I have many chapters left, but I'm enjoying it so far. And I'm going to continue reading it and making more videos talking about it probably. But yeah, I hope you got some value from listening to this. Every once in a while, I like reading from a book that I'm currently reading or have read, and just sharing little pieces of wisdom or things that I've gotten from this book that have helped me so they can hopefully impact someone else in a positive way as well. I'd love to hear what kind of cool books you're reading. If you're reading any cool self-development books or books for your mindset or whatnot, or just cool books in general. If you're reading anything interesting, let me know. I always love getting new book recommendations. And yeah, that's it. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you being a part of Presence of Being. And if you have any recommendations for what it is you want me to talk about in these recordings, just hit me up, DM me. My DMs are always open. You can message me on TikTok. You can message me on Instagram at @SamWiseBroad_, at Presence of Being. I respond to all my messages, all my DMs. So yeah, thank you again for listening. I hope you got some value from listening to this, and I will see you in the next recording very soon.